Hi there folks, it's Carly, Chief Executive of Driving Instructors Association. I'm just here to give you a quick update on the situation vis-a-vis testing and training in our industry at this moment in time. Sadly, I won't be giving you the million-dollar answer to the million-dollar question, but I hopefully will explain very briefly a few reasons why we're not at the point that we can give that firm answer, very, very sadly. Sorry that we haven't been able to do these videos. I know, strangely, many of you seem to like listening to me waffling on from time to time. Over the last few weeks, we've been very focused on dealing with the kind of thousands of emails and calls we get through to our help desk and dealing with those one-on-one pieces of advice, and also giving wider advice via our webinar series as well. But we hope to be able to resume doing some more of these weekly updates for you as we resource up and get to some semblance of normal delivery as well. So thanks for bearing with us on that. Obviously, early this week you will have seen me communicating about my dissatisfaction and our wider frustration with the lack of communications with DVSA. And with my NASP colleagues, we co-wrote a letter to Baroness Veer, the minister responsible for our area, to express further our frustration with the lack of dialogue and for driver trainers themselves. Obviously we have our weekly conversation, but the lack of direct communication that the fee-paying customer that is the ADI and their pupil was having from the agency as well. Obviously that point has been taken on board. Yesterday I had a one-on-one telephone conversation with Gareth Llewellyn where we were able to discuss some of the issues. Now, whilst I can't at this moment in time divulge all of the details of that conversation, what it really surrounded was why has testing not been able to resume yet, and why have we not been able to get that firm timeline confirmed in terms of when testing will actually resume. And why hasn't there been the guidance for trainers about their full return to work? Obviously mindful that some people are already out there, they're working for either being a key worker trainer or other reasons. Now, whilst not every excuse that an agency might make for its lack of communication washes with me, and they have been told that, and they will testify to the fact that I can be quite vociferous, shall we say, and passionate if I was being complimentary to myself, scary some people might say, on the issue of communications. There is some rationale to the reason for not being able to communicate things like dates for resumptions of services or confirm what dates things are going to happen on. So knowing some of the challenges that they've got to overcome still, so for example, not necessarily having the green light from central government to put their plans in action to resume testing, the number of hurdles that they will have to jump to get testing back up and running, ranging from examiner resourcing to actually physically open buildings, making sure those buildings are safe to be used by members of the public, what protocols you'll put in place for a normal level of testing with normal candidates, because obviously things like the standard operating procedures that are in place at the moment are there for exceptional circumstances, critical worker tests. All of these things are, if not completely, kind of explaining away every reason why we haven't had these communications to date or this guidance, they do give a very pragmatic explanation for why it's been difficult to give a concrete set of advisory guidelines or a timeline for things resuming. So what I've asked in that respect is, and in the vein of making sure that they take on that mantle of communicating directly with you, their customer, and not just putting it all through NASP and making it our job, grateful as we are for the dialogue, you do want to hear from DVSA, you don't just want to hear from us all the time. I have been promised that they will seek permission from the minister and from wider government to be able to at least make communications explaining what the challenges are. I think it's important, and Miss Llewellyn did take this on board today, we tell people, what point we're at in these preparations, what's it taking to get to this stage, what preparations are being put in place, and what are the obstacles left to come. So we have at least an understanding. The problem we've had for the last few weeks is we've been like mushrooms, growing in the dark, and we're not meant to be mushrooms. We don't thrive in that kind of scenario as human beings, and we shouldn't be left in that kind of scenario as well. So, I've asked for that kind of, background and that foresight of what's to come, and for us to all understand what the challenges are. But I've also asked for, at least a reassurance communication. I completely get that it's very difficult, having worked in government comms roles, to sometimes be allowed to make communications that, give any firm undertakings, because it's so sensitive to get those communications out. And it doesn't just it's not just a responsibility of DVSA. They can't just sign off in times like this on their own communications. They actually do have to seek approval from even right up to the Cabinet Office on some of the more sensitive issues. And if you imagine, DVSA are not necessarily the priority on some days when it comes to looking at those communications. There are NHS, there are other government agencies and the stakeholder bodies that will have to necessarily take precedence on that front line. However, understanding all of that, as I've made very, very clear, I don't think there is a real excuse for not making at least communications to reassure people that their frustrations are being heard and that efforts are being made to address their concerns and frustrations. That's not making an undertaking, it's not making a promise, it's not putting a date in concrete. It is just telling people that you do respect them. You respect them and you respect their frustrations and angers and concerns, and that you are working to alleviate all of those things, and that explaining the reasons why, giving people the credit for understanding the challenges as well. So, Miss Llewellyn has undertaken to take that away and try and release another communication, because let's face it, we haven't had anything since the 22nd of April, I think it was, directly to you as ADIs and fee-paying licence holders to the agency as well. So I'm hopeful you get some better level of communication from them next week. Who knows? Whilst I'm making this video on Friday lunchtime, you may have even got a tweet that I haven't seen, or a communication directly from them. Don't always take it that we see it first. And that is another issue that we've addressed as well, that communications have to be consistent, coming out from the right sources, and that we all hear in a timely manner as well. So all those points have been made. I do believe they've been taken on board. We'll see the results of that when we see the communications, of course, but hopefully we'll see some movement on these issues soon. Continue to talk to us about individual advice about your individual situations in terms of returning to work. It is an individual decision. There is the general guidance that training should be restricted to those training key workers only with an essential need to drive. I know DVSA says with a critical worker test. However, in my earlier conversations, when we constructed and came up with the idea of the Key Worker Trainer Register, it was accepted by those two departments that not necessarily every bit of training going on at this time with key workers would result in a critical worker test. We do accept, as an industry, that there are those who will be needing training for genuine road safety reasons, for their driver competence and safety, because they are developing their driving, but they already have a licence. And not everybody you're going to see being trained as a key worker will have a critical worker test. And there is government awareness that we are supporting those who are training people who are developing their skills. For example, they may have a full licence, category B, but they are gaining some training because they're going to be driving vehicles that they're not used to, in context they're not used to as well. And that's really important. We do that training to have that public health risk of those new occupational drivers managed on our roads, so we don't see more RTCs and pressure on the front line as well. So there's that acceptance that guidance is in place as well. But we know some of you have returned to work and you're not doing key worker training, and I will get some angry emails about that, as much as I will get some of those individuals who want to return sooner rather than later seeking our guidance and to some extent validation. DIA's membership is a broad church. We have fleet trainers, rider trainers, PCV trainers, kind of D+E. We are not just one type. We're the largest association in our space, and we're probably the most diverse in terms of the type of trainer we have. We don't necessarily have the ability, therefore, to give one set answer that pleases everybody. We have to deal with people on an individual basis. So, please do seek that guidance about your return. I will stand up and say that if somebody is going to go back to training now, and there is nothing we can do to distract them from that goal, or they feel they have to because of their financial situation, or they're worried about their pupils actually having a test at the end of June and that actually taking place, that if you do have to do that and you do have to go back out on the road for those reasons, then please do call us and get some guidance. And also look at the training materials that we've got available to guide you how to do this safely. Don't feel you have to go underground with this and not seek advice at all. We'd rather people sort our advice on that as well. Turning to the issue of training and preparation for returning to work, next week we will be launching our COVID-19 toolkit. We started a little bit of that advice with the webinars we've been doing so far. We're gathering a lot of that material together. We're pulling the main part of it into a certified safe training in the context of COVID-19, because a lot of our members have actually asked us for a certificated course because they want to be able to show that to parents, pupils, fleet customers, everybody to know that they've been through some specific training in this area as well. So those materials will be available in the members area only for DIA members shortly. It'll be a full toolkit of the courses, training materials and checklists, advice on things like T&Cs and building your business back up and having the right policies in place. There's a huge cache of information going in there already, but certainly we will also be adding to it over time. So if you do see that next week and you think, why didn't they think of that? Then let us know, because we will develop that resource. And as we learn and develop more understanding of what's needed, we'll be adding to stuff as well. But we always want to hear from you guys, particularly as you work in such diverse areas. You can tell us what you need for your specific area. There will be materials in there that are broad and applicable to all types of trainer, and we'll do some specific stuff for our different categories of trainer as well. With that in mind, rider trainers, fleet trainers, we're aware that sometimes you can feel a little bit neglected or lumped in with everybody. We will be producing specific communications for you and kicking off with a rider trainer webinar next Friday at 11 as well, and following that up with some LGV trainer webinars and advice as well. On financial advice, obviously we'll be giving quite a lot of that. The two big pieces of news there are around the launch of the bounce back loans. I've covered those in another video and other communications, so look back through our materials there for our advice on those, or you can call or email us for specific advice on your use of those. Those are still open to people. There's a lot of backlog. There's been a huge number of applications for bounce back loans, so you may find that you are in a bit of a long queue to get yours. Some people in the early days were getting their money very quickly, and once your claim is processed, the money is coming through straight into your account. It's just there are some banking brands that are struggling with their backlog at the moment. Metro Bank announced yesterday that it's now been added to the list of banks that can provide the scheme. So as more banks come on scheme, the more availability of people to be able to go for those loans as well. We had the great news that the self-employment income support scheme would be extended to August, and people can reapply in August. HMRC, I'm sure, will be in touch with people about how this is going to work, but we're trying to get information together now and give you some more guidance on that. That will be a retrospective payment again, covering June through to August as we understand it, but feel free to let me know if you know more than I do on that point right now. We did a really useful webinar the other week with a chartered accountant, a small business advisor, and myself, talking about all the support you can get in a financial sense. That's called Financial Matters. We also did one last week on Back to Business, talking about how to get your business in order, and there's quite a lot of financial advice in that as well about stabilising your finances. Pricing, we talk about pricing and the need to look at pricing, what you charge and how you charge going forward to help stabilise your finances as well. So take heed of those materials. They are just as important as thinking about safe trading protocols. Stabilising your business is just as important as having the good foundations in place for a return to your physical training as well. I think that's all I've got for you today. There'll be other guidance and updates in the newsletter that this video comes with for DIA members as well. If you've got questions, please do keep sending them through to us. We can't always pick up the phone when you want us to at that moment, because it is just so damn busy, or answer emails in the time frame that you would like us to do so. But we're doing our very best, and we endeavour to get back to everybody within 48 hours. So please bear with us. What I would like to say personally, on behalf of my team at DIA, is a massive thank you to all of our members for their support at this time. We realise what a terribly stressful and frustrating time it is. You've thanked us for all the advice and guidance and support we've given you, but I want to thank you for your patience, your kindness, your message of support that you've given us as well, your ideas, your optimism, and keeping us buoyed up with your optimism as well, your thoughtfulness. Those of you who are out on the front line, as it were, devoting your time and exposing yourself to risk as key workers, need to be thanked and appreciated as well. And we do very much so. But equally, those of you who are staying at home and helping to move that infection rate down, also, we want to thank you for all your efforts there as well. And we hope to be in a position soon where we can resume some level of training and testing and getting back to the work that you love doing on the ground, and we love supporting you in as well. It won't be what we had before. It will be a new normal, the new BS bingo phrase that everybody's using, including myself, and overusing. But there are a lot of lessons learned from this process, and we wish we hadn't gone through this to learn them, but that some of them will be very useful for our future, different as that future may be. But I hope we get to that point of getting to some level of normal soon, and we hope to be there with you soon as you restart training as a whole. And please let us know in the meantime if there's anything else that we can do for you, and know that we really appreciate your support at this time. In the meantime, I just want to say have a safe weekend, stay well, and we hope to speak to you soon. Take care, bye bye.